We will now return to EX 16.8, and we need a moment to bring up the speakers list. Not up there yet. Oh, okay. Councillor Lindsay Luby.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, just so since we're coming back from lunch, I'd just like to remind members of council what we're talking about, and that is the reconstitution of the Toronto Transit Commission. Now, it's clear it needed to be reconstituted because the last commission, by majority vote, decided to blow $500,000 by firing Gary Webster, who was a renowned expert in transit matters. So yes, it does need to be changed. The issue becomes, what's a better formula? And no one kind of formula seems to suit everybody. So that means we have to customize as we go along. I definitely prefer a majority of members of council to citizens, and I'll tell you why. It's because members of council are ultimately accountable to the public. Citizen members are absolutely not. And anybody who needs an explanation of that, well, I'm sure you don't. I want to mention also that as councillors, those councillors on the TTC are responsible for blowing that money when I've received so many complaints about the lack of transit service, how it's been cut back, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what could we have done with that $500,000? Could have saved things. Meanwhile, we've increased transit fares and given them less service. I don't think that's the right thing to do, and you all know it isn't. I listened carefully to the remarks of Councillor Stintz, Councillor Parker, and Councillor Thompson. All reasoned remarks. I'm sorry I cannot follow Councillor Thompson's suggestions, his motion for an all-citizen board. As I say, they're not accountable. It would cost us a great deal of money to have these wonderful citizens sitting there. These citizens who, in the private sector, I'm sure are earning a very good dollar, don't need to be supplemented by city monies. However, I also don't want to put forward the numbers that Councillor Stintz's motion suggested for members of the public. And I am going to be supporting what Councillor Moser had suggested, which was $5,000 for the public and $10,000 for the vice chair, who'd be a member of the public. That's an honorarium. That's what we should be awarding, is an honorarium, not a stipend that can really go beyond what we really need. If people want to be in the public service and do good things, then an honorarium. Members of council don't receive a cent to sit on any board beyond our own salaries. So, you know, a lot of the work that we do is above and beyond what an ordinary person would do if you sit on a lot of boards. Now, I want to also mention a few things that I think the fairest thing to do, and what I found is that council has become very divisive. You know, it's suddenly we're fighting urban, suburban. Why? We're all in this together. I don't know why we need to do that. Why do we need to call each other names in this council chamber? Why? Surely we're above those things. It's unbelievable that we should be saying that. It's unbelievable that members of council should be saying things like other members are schizophrenic. How ridiculous is that? Shame on them for saying that. And I think the person who said that knows darn well who it is. I know who said it, and you know it's not right. So we have to, if we don't respect each other, the public will not respect us. I will tell you that right now. I'm going to be supporting Councillor Stints' motions here, with the exception of the honorarium, the monies. I think it's the right way to go. Nothing will be perfect. The proof will be in the pudding, and we will find out just how good this is, and I'm sure we'll be able to attract some good members of the public to sit on the board because they want to do it, not because they're getting paid. Thank you.
Councillor Lee to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support Councillor Stints' motion to have a composition of 7 councillors and 4 citizens for the TTC board. But I do have an amendment to make, and that is point 5 of Councillor Stints' motion, whereby I would change the remuneration to $5,000 and $10,000 for citizen vice prayer, and per diem of $450 per meeting. Total that adds up to about the same as what your suggestion was, but this will be paying them for attending the meetings rather than just an amount that whether you attend a meeting or not, you get paid for it. And this is in line with many private corporations that have board of directors that sit on them, that they are paid according to the number of meetings they attend at the boards. So this is a way of ensuring that they do attend and they're not just given the money. And I'm sure that whoever applies would also have the desire to attend, because they are contributing to the future of our public transit in Toronto. But I believe that this is a fair way of doing it, just like the private sector has already done a long time ago. So I hope that I can get your support for this. Thank you.
Councillor Cho to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to commend Councillor Karen Stints, the chair of TTC. You know, this young woman councillor has guts. She has real respect for the taxpayers. The whole problem, you know, we have been saying, pardon me, I often use my mother country culture, Korean culture. We say, you're barking a wrong tree. With the dog barking a wrong tree, you miss the real target. The big mess is not TTC. The big mess started with our worship, Mayor Rob Ford. You know, right after the election, if he brought this transit plan to council, we're already digging and building, whether it's LRT or survey, something. He totally ignored the taxpayers, because we are taxpayers. We elected by taxpayers. That's number one. It's not the TTC. So don't blame TTC. It's a big mess, okay? The second thing is, you know, one day I was coming out my health club, and I spoke to the receptionist, a beautiful girl. Hey, Christine, if I offer you diamond, gold, or silver, and you don't have to pay anything, which one you prefer? Of course, a diamond. You know, when you go around asking people, would you like to have subway, or LRT, or BRT, or bicycle lane, and you don't have to pay anything? Everybody will say, of course I like the subway. That's what has happened. You know, that's the second mistake, the leadership telling untrue story. You don't have to pay anything, no tax. That's nonsense. You cannot fool the public. You just say, oh, everybody wants the subway. Of course I want subway. That's what I said during the election. When I saw all the details, we cannot afford to get the subway. You know, when when we look at the other countries, the federal government, they provide a huge amount of capital budget, operating costs. We don't have that. Oh, don't worry, there's no toll, no tax. Why should I refuse subway? That's the second mistake, you know. Third one, if I quote some newspaper article, we sent 5 pit bulls and fired chief general manager who was really honest, giving out the professional opinion and report, but you don't submit report, then you fire. That's third mistake. So you know where's the mess. It's not the TTC. The mess is right here. Okay? And then this young, beautiful councilor, female, stood up. No, we cannot do this. That's why I really commend Councilor Karen Stins. I'm glad that we have a very brave, honest councilor. Okay? So that is why we have to, you know, when you see a spider, call it spider. Don't say, oh, if we put the white paint, it's not the black spider. Oh, it's been a diamond. Okay, give me a break. You know, Torontonians, they're very, very intelligent people. That is why each time we have a poll, the survey going down, down, down. I like a survey. No? Okay, so I really commend Councilor Karen Stins. I also like to commend Councilor Peter Milson. You know, on center, some people call me lefty, some centrist, some right. Depends on the issue. What is best for the city of Toronto, I vote it. Okay, vote for it. Okay. And Councilor Peter Milton stood up the last meeting. You know, he will support Chief General Manager Gary Webster. And I was quite impressed. He was very honest. You know, me, I don't care whether it's a right or left or center. What is best for the city of Toronto? What kind of vision we have for the future generation? You don't just say, oh, you have to obey, honor, respect the mayor. If a mayor doing right thing, respect that. If a mayor does wrong thing, don't respect that. You don't just blind respect mayor and fire the very dedicated, honest professionals. That's the whole problem.
Okay, motion to extend recorded vote.
Councilors Kelly and Del Grande, please. Councilor Rajamari, please.
I feel like I'm done too.
This is not.
No.
Councillor Mihevc, please.
The motion to extend the speaker's time carries 29-3.
Thank you. You know, if I have a choice, I will go for 11 politicians. But since Councillor Karen Stins is moving that motion, I will support that. And we need a new blood, new vision from private sector. But the politicians, we do have accountability. If I do boo-boo next election, people kick me out. But if you have private citizens, they stay there forever as long as they listen to mayor. We know that. We cannot have that kind of accountability, right? But having a private citizen, maybe we could get some different inputs because I'm not politician. So I could accommodate maybe 7-4. And I think that's the best model at the present time. Now, coming back to the honorarium, I will support Councilor Ron Moses. I don't think a private citizen coming to make money here. And I agree with Councilor Gloria Lunds-Ruby 100%. We have to give them at least some money for the TTC fair thing kind of thing. But I don't think we should honor, I was quite surprised to see deputy mayor say we give more double the honorarium for private citizen. Well, it's some kind of bribe. So maybe I'm talking too much, but I think the motion before us by Councillor Karen Stintz is the best motion, and I hope that they will support that. Thank you.
Councillor Matlow.
Madam Speaker, I certainly urge all of us to support TTC Chair and Councillor Stintz's motion. I think it strikes a good balance. Many, if not all of us, were and are residents, citizens of Toronto. Before we were elected to this chamber, and we continue to be residents of Toronto. We all went through a civic appointments process, which was called an election. And we had thousands of our neighbors and residents decide that we had the qualifications and their wisdom to give them fair representation in this chamber and to boards and commissions that are under our purview. I recognize that there's an interest in bringing in some other perspectives, some people that have some experience in sectors that are not perhaps those that perhaps people here are a part of. And I recognize that interest. I also recognize that it's a populist cause. I know that it's fashionable to say, well, those politicians are not really going to look after your needs. All they care about is themselves. So let's bring in some private citizens who have some private expertise. And I understand why some people want that there. And that's why we recognize that. And we're kind of putting together a model that might validate both perspectives. Ultimately, though, I think about Mr. Webster. And I think about the over $500,000 that is going to be dedicated to asking a professional, an expert, to sit at home for the next year and a half, and what that $500,000 could have gone to. How many bus routes would have been protected? How many services could we have funded with that money? The gentleman from Ward 2, Councillor Ford, often talks about Six Sigma practice and how we need to run this place like a business. We need to be responsible and professional and use methodology to make sure that we see results. Well, one of the main principles of Six Sigma is about using evidence, about not basing policy on guesses. So I would agree with Councillor Ford. We need TTC commissioners that will not base policy on guesses. For example, I wonder how many of our commissioners are aware of how frozen the corridor in Shepherd is, that even if we brought redevelopment or proposed redevelopment into that corridor, that there are so few soft sites that it's not actually a realistic proposal, even if you had every developer on board. I wonder how many of those commissioners now are aware that the single subway line that's been being built now in North America is the 2nd Avenue subway line in Manhattan, where there is high density. And not only has this taken 40 years, but it was planned 75 years ago. And that there are over 40 municipalities across North America that are currently building light rapid transit because they know it's realistic, and those municipalities are actually supplemented, they're funded by state or federal governments, unlike Toronto, which is alone and having to subsidize most of our transit system to the fare box. I want commissioners who recognize that we need to make evidence-based decisions to be able to move us forward, and ultimately make decisions that will not consider just Shepherd or just Eglinton or just Finch, but the city as a whole, the greater good. Everything from our bus routes to how we implement a strategy that council decides on and wants the TTC to move forward on. The main message that we need to send to the public is that council and the TTC are going to work cooperatively and in concert together. And we can send a message to Metrolinx in the province that we're on the same page, that we want to get things done. Because what this place is about good governance, or it should be. It should be about us working together to find common cause, and when we can't find common cause, we make a majority decision, we hear the voice of the minority, and then we move forward. This place should be about governing, not simply putting together dishonest arguments for a 2014 re-election bid. Thank you.
Davis. Okay, Councillor Kelly?
Sorry, my motion's just, they're having a problem.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I'm going to preface my remarks by saying that, and I'm speaking for the record, I'm going to preface my remarks by saying that when I was invited to sit on the commission, we agreed that I would sit on it for the first half of the term, so I shall not be placing my name in nomination. And I wish everyone whose names are put in nomination, and those successfully so, the very best in the future. Here are my thoughts, Madam Speaker, or Speaker. The reason we're here, as I understand it, is because there's a very strong desire to bring the will of council and the will of the TTC together, that they form a partnership, and I think the previous speaker spoke to that. But Speaker, and now I'm talking to perhaps some of the newer members of council, you have to remember, Speaker, that we have a fiduciary duty to the corporation's board to which we've been appointed. So if you're sitting on the commission, your duty is not to the City of Toronto, it's to the Commission. And if you exercise independent judgment on behalf of the Commission, then you should be expected at times to make difficult decisions. And if you want any advice with respect to this matter, I would suggest that you talk to the most prominent person in this field, Carol Hansel, who made a very effective presentation, Speaker, to the Board of Directors of TCHC last week. So you're going there to do your best for the TTC, not for the City of Toronto. In many instances, perhaps the interests will coincide, but it doesn't mean that you are an extension of this City Council. And I want to make that point very clearly. And in making that point, Speaker, I have to tell you that what was lost over the last couple of weeks was any analysis of the Commission or the corporation whose interests it supervised. Instead, this whole debate was framed as a personal vendetta. That, and the reason that we used, that is, dismissal without cause, frankly, from a legal perspective, precluded an analysis of transit and City Hall as they exist today. Personally, I'm frustrated. My hands and those of my colleagues are tied. But I have to tell you that I made my judgment independent of anyone else in this forum. I fell back on my experience as a Metro councillor, as the former chair of planning in the City of Toronto, as a member of the Metrolinx board, as a commissioner under Lastman's administration, and a commissioner today. And Speaker, based on my experience And based on the knowledge that we were going to go ahead and rework the commission, that we had a unique opportunity, both administratively and politically, to start afresh. So in my mind, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that as awkward as the decision would be, it was the right decision to make. The theme of this administration is change. And I laud the present mayor for his willingness to put everything on the table, including the TTC.
Councillor Kelly, would you like an extension?
I would.
Okay, recorded vote.
Only because you're in my seat, mate.
Councillor Crawford and Councillor Robinson, please.
Councillor Kelly, your vote, please.
Councillor Mihevc, please.
Councillor Shiner, when you're seated, please. And Councillor Davis.
Councillor Ford, could we have your vote, please?
The motion to extend the speaker's time carries 31-1.
Speaker, as I was saying, I felt that my voice and my vote constituted a commitment to change. A change in the culture of the commission, of the corporation, a change in I'm trying to be very careful, a change in the ability of the leadership of the corporation to foment change and at the same time exercise the discipline throughout the corporation, top to bottom, that would take all of us forward into a richer future than I would otherwise have anticipated. This, and what I have in mind, and can't speak to in any great detail, and that is the changes that I envisaged in my mind at that time, were probably contained in an article by Richard Gilbert. Any of you read it in the Star over the weekend? Well, I'm not saying that I would agree with everything that Richard Gilbert wrote, but you know what? He's out there thinking. He's out there proposing. And frankly, I would want this type of thinking to come from the corporation, not from outside the corporation. And I have to tell you, I am absolutely delighted at the...
Councillor Kelly, your time's up.
Time's up?
Yes, sir. Okay, is Councillor Carroll's motion ready? Is it ready? It is. Hello, is Councillor Carroll's motion ready? Okay. Councillor Carroll to speak.
Well, Madam Speaker, there are four little amendments. They're all of them simply to do with accountability. I don't know if you want to consider them read or you want me to read them, but I'm being teased. They're all to do with how we will begin to function with a newly constituted commission that includes citizens, Madam Speaker. They're also about reviewing whatever we decide today in terms of what that hybrid is, be it 5 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 4, whatever it is, that we will review them before we do the next one. What will be the efficacy of having the citizens on the board? Maybe there won't be enough. Maybe there will be too many. We will ask the city manager to review. And the last one, I think, is very important, because what's come to light, Madam Speaker, in the wranglings and the conversations around the hall these last few weeks on the structure of the Toronto Transit Commission, and maybe it would have caused a different outcome for Mr. Webster. We're sort of at the mercy of the Toronto Transit Commission as it is right now with all councillors, given that they spend so much of their time in camera. And while we're very disciplined in their public meetings, councillors attend as observers. We have no voice, no vote. We can just be in the room. We're not in the room to listen to in-camera presentations. And that's where the real heart of the matter happens. That's where some of the arguments around what route, what vehicle, what is the vision, what is the goal going forward. Some of the most key decisions that will happen in my ward, will happen on the waterfront, will happen anywhere in the system, really get unpacked in those sessions. And so what I'm asking, particularly now, since we're going to reduce our own participation on the board, I see that happening today, I think we need to look at, we need to have the same discipline there. It's no voice, no vote. But we do need to have the ability to observe those transactions. We do also need to be able to review this. This is going to be a very difficult appointment process, because for these citizens, we are looking for a skills-based board. And I can speak to that. We've all sat on boards where we have a corporate membership there, and they bring to it. Sometimes we have the Hydro Board, for instance. We have an HR specialist who's sitting on the board, a former operations specialist from within that organization, now retired, is on the board. We have a number of different fields of expertise within that citizen membership there. And it's great to be able to draw on that. As shareholders, you should be comforted they're there. But it is very, very private. Right now at that board, for instance, you have some issues as shareholders. Dealing with them is hard because you haven't been able to sit in on some of those presentations. You haven't been able to hear the rationale. And as stewards of this commission, in the overarching sense, as councillors, perhaps you need to be able to hear some of those rationale. And so that's why that's why we want the city manager to look at, if we make a decision today, did we get it right? Whatever it may be. By some wacky miracle, Councillor Thompson's motion might win. We're going to want to review that, certainly. I don't see that in the cards. But that's what these motions are all about for me. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to speak to Councillor Holliday's motion. So I appreciate very much what Councillor Holliday is suggesting is that we really go back to the staff recommendations. I think you've taken us back almost word for word in terms of compensation. Staff looked at that compensation in looking at other successful boards. And while $15,000 might seem generous, it's not really. It's pretty much the going rate. In fact, we did actually economize. In a lot of very important hybrid public-private and even public sector boards, it's $15,000 plus $1,000 a meeting. We've left that off here. But at $15,000, you will be looking at that skill set you're trying to draw upon at a high level. At $5,000, where have we heard that number for? Well, I worked for $5,000 on the school board. So did Councillor Cole. So did former trustee Matlow. A lot of us worked for $5,000. Gee, it sounds to me like for $5,000 you get activists.
For 6 years.
You get activists. If it's skills you're looking for, corporate skills, you need to look at the marketplace. And I think staff...
Carol, would you like an extension?
I would, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Recorded vote?
It's my birthday. Yes. Don't give me the number of seconds that matches my age. That would give it away.
2 minutes goes too fast.
Councillor Carroll, your vote, please.
Councillor Crawford, please. Councillor Mihevc, please.
Councillor Perruzza and Councillor
Councillor Grimes, you
DeGiorgio,
didn't give me a
please.
present?
Councillor Davis.
Just this once, Mark.
Councillor Mamalidi, please.
Be big, Mark.
Once a year.
Councillor Davis, please.
The motion to extend the speaker's time carries unanimously, 33 in favor.
Madam Speaker, I appreciate Councillor Grimes' gift. As we always have a council session the week before March break, I have spent 5 birthdays in this council chamber out of the 8 years in office, most of them with Councillor Ashton, whose birthday is also the 5th. Happy birthday, Brian, if you're watching on Channel 10. Madam Speaker, as I was saying, it's that corporate expertise that we're looking for. That's what I heard in executive committee, and staff provided you with recommendations on remuneration that will deliver that. Not activists, it will deliver corporate expertise. The only thing that I needed a little extension to say beyond that, Madam Speaker, is that when it comes time to nominate and to elect these Transit Commission members, it's really got to be not about winning and losing. It's got to be not about mushing people's face into a mud puddle on the ground. It's really got to be about the rider of the system. And those riders are the circulatory system of the City of Toronto. We've got to choose the people that are going to carry those riders all the way down every tiny vein and out into every part of this city. And you should be nominating and you should be electing members on that basis. That's certainly going to govern my decisions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. We do have questions. Councillor Lindsay Luby.
I'm sorry I don't have your motion in front of me, so it's hard to look at it. Yeah. Your one point about allowing all councillors in for the closed session, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that when...
With observer status.
So what's your question, Councillor Lindsay Luby?
I'm sorry?
What's your question?
I was just getting to it.
Oh, okay.
I can't. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, as I've said, it's just that the issues that unfold at the TTC in public session are so complex and so time-consuming, and so much time needs to be left for the riders to make their deputations, that often the really important rationale around some of their proposals that give statistics that sometimes are being delivered in camera because they're not yet ready for public consumption at the month-end report, that sometimes that rationale ends up happening outside of our view, and so it's hard for us to champion what's going to happen with transit development. We hear that.
Excuse me, were you one of the people, like myself, who was trying to get in and listen to the in-camera conversation regarding Gary Webster?
To me, that's over and above this. That was a very unique situation. Yeah. I didn't make a fuss about that. I pretty much knew what was going to happen. They made themselves pretty plain.
I would have loved to have listened to it, nevertheless. The point you raised about salary or remuneration. When I was a school trustee, I earned $4,800 a year. Mm-hmm. I did not turn into an activist. So are you suggesting that for a lower stipend or honorarium for these people, somehow we're going to get the wrong kind of people?
Well, as your sister councillor, I hope you're not asking me to now ask you back what year was that.
The point is, that's right, it was before you were a councillor.
It was a long time ago.
You were probably a bank teller at the time,
but that being
it's
said,
before you were a councillor.
Right, and that being said, we're now in a situation where school boards have much larger ridings, whole provincial ridings,
but how does that
and they are in loco parentis over tens of thousands of children and big policy decisions, and so that's why I think nowadays if you under-remunerate at the $5,000 level, that's who you got, passionate activists.
But
what we have now over there is something that's more in the range. It's a little more than what Mr. Panichetti recommended. It's 26 grand.
Thank you. Last question. We are giving citizen members on the police board $8,000 a year. Do you think, therefore, they're being under-remunerated?
Quite frankly, yes. Yes, I do. I'd like to see less rubber stamping and more iterative process.
Councillor Lee, question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Actually, it's on the same point that Councillor Lindsay Luby was making.
Yes.
I do like the point about opening up the meetings to city councillors. Is there any way that you can expand it to include all the other agencies and boards, like Hydro and the other ones that's wholly owned? I think that would be a good way of approaching it.
The key difference between the Commission and, say, the Toronto Hydro Board is it really is quite and truly not arm's length, but a separate corporation with its own rules of incorporation and its own regulatory board. We are the regulatory board of the Commission. It's not a corporation set apart. It is our Commission. And yet the rationale that we are then expected to fund directly, not collect rates for by a separate commission, but fund directly, we haven't heard the rationale for what we're asking for and what we're about to build.
Okay,
so it's slightly different than Hydro.
I'll move it as future motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's not before us, so actually that question shouldn't even have been asked, and I should have cut it off at that point.
Read my point.
Councillor Wong Tam to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And if the clerks don't mind putting up the motion on the screen, I'd like to just do a friendly amendment to Councillor Stints' very fine motion, and just to add a few sentences to her clause number 6 at the very end, and I'll let the members of this chamber read that, and also to add this particular sentence to the list of skills, knowledge, and experience to recommendation number 7, which is that we'll be looking for professionals, policy experts that possess at least professional knowledge, working experience of urban sustainability, intersectionality, and inclusive governance. I'm actually quite surprised that there isn't a single word around sustainability in the new governance model of the TTC as proposed by staff. So I'm hoping that we can still correct that. It's not too late. So really what I want to just put before the members of this council today is some acknowledgement that cities around the world have all very much adopted robust and mature, sophisticated policies with respect to social equity principles into their transit planning. So looking at the urban built environment from a social equity, social inclusion perspective. The World Bank, as well as the United Nations, have released significant and separate reports, transit policy papers that speak to this particular topic, and they actually do so in advocacy on improved transit strategies for rural as well as urban populations. So this is not groundbreaking work that we're doing here. We're following best practices around the world. The TTC has begun some of this work already through the designated waiting areas to improve safety on subway platforms, and they've also done this through the innovative creation of the request stops, where women and girls originally and historically were able to request stops in between designated bus stops in the evening and when times are dark. And of course, that particular service enhancement has now improved, and it has evolved, and it is now available to everyone. Our new Chief Customer Service Officer, Chris Upfold, informed me through a fun little Twitter conversation that not only does the UK's London Underground incorporate a gender equality scheme into its transit plans, the municipal government in London also promotes social inclusion and intersectional equity analysis by incorporating a race equality scheme, a sexual orientation equality scheme, a disability and deaf equality scheme. So Toronto now has access, employer-employee access, to Mr. Upfold's international expertise on these matters. And I do think that it might be a missed opportunity if we don't empower him and the staff at the TTC to try to create those same equity transit planning tools here in Toronto, like they've already done so successfully in the UK. And the promotion of social equity and social inclusion in mass transit planning will produce two measurable results. One is that we will have improved and better customer service, as well as it is a superior business model. A service provider must know and be able to properly assess the needs of their customers. And this is a methodology that's employed in every single sector. And what they do is they match service enhancements with programmatic changes and ridership needs. It's a very simple formula about trying to keep it all vertically integrated so you can actually respond, be nimble, flexible, and practical in your application. Because we all know that actually it will cost more to redesign infrastructure after it's already been designed, after it's already been constructed and installed, than if we get it at the beginning, right at the beginning, it'll be much, much cheaper. So we know that equity is a proven marker of business success, and it is a profit tool used by hundreds of Canadian companies. I will be supporting Councillor Stints' motion, and I believe that the new TTC advisory panel should incorporate the broadest ranges of perspective, and not less. And I hope that we have the ability to see beyond the political fighting that's been taking place in this council, and to think globally, act locally, about how do we produce the best level of TTC service for the ridership so we are able to build the best transit system in the world right here in Toronto with each other. Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Speaker. I wonder if you could put my motions on the screen. I have two motions. The first motion is a motion that's similar to the one that we adopted when we were adopting the Sign Variance Committee and its composition. And that would be to ensure that potential candidates, the citizen members, are not owners, agents, or engaged in business with the TTC, or could be reasonably expected to engage in the procurement opportunities within the TTC. The second one adds to the recruitment process that is embedded in both Councillor Stints and the City Manager's report, and that is to add that the City Manager also use a professional recruitment agency, which is essentially the Type 3 kind of recruitment policy, which is what we use for all of our corporations. And so I'm attempting to create a hybrid, which is a combination of Type 1 and Type 3 recruitment process. I've had the opportunity to review these motions with the City Manager, our City Solicitor, our Appointments Policy staff, and our City Clerk, and I can assure you that they are all in support of the motions that are before you in my motions. I will be supporting Councillor Stints' motion to create a TTC that is a combination of both councillors and citizen members. We've had this discussion for many years about whether citizen members would add value to the decision-making process at the TTC. And in Councillor Stints' motion, that is recognized. We have all come to the point where we agree that having additional expertise, in addition to councillors, would provide stronger governance for the TTC. However, I think it's extremely important that we maintain a balance that provides the greatest public accountability. And that means, in my view, that the majority must be councillors. This is the largest capital and operating budget we have at the City of Toronto. We cannot rely on simply exercising our accountability through an agreement with a group of citizens. That is not the best way to ensure we have control and accountability to the City Council and to the city as a whole. I don't even know really how it is that we had a motion here before us for a 9-member board when we approved an 11-member board in April. Now, I won't challenge that we need a 2/3 to reopen, but we approved that this board would have 11 members, and it also said that a corporation could come forward and request a different composition. The TTC has done that. They've requested citizen members on the board, but they did not say specifically the number on that board. And I believe that the number 11 versus 9 is an irrelevancy. We need to ensure that the majority of members are councillors, but we have the added expertise of citizen members. Every single corporation we have has that kind of composition. Hydro, Enwave, TCHC, Waterfront Toronto, every board has both citizen and councillor representation amongst our corporations, and this would reflect that consistent viewpoint of representation. Now, in terms of the citizen members on the board, I think it's absolutely essential that we get the best, the most skilled, and those who do not have conflicts of interest or perceived conflicts of interest, and that we have to make sure we do, as we did with the Sign Variance Committee, make sure that we scrutinize those relationships.
Councillor Davis, you need an extension?
Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
Councillor Carroll, please.
Councillor Mihevc, please.
Councillor Barnetti, please. And thank you. And Councillor Pasternak, when you're seated, please.
The motion to extend the Speaker's time carries 33-1.
So I believe that everyone around this council chamber wants to put in place the strongest TTC board, the best commission we can, to move forward with a transit plan for the future, transit expansion, and ensures that the operations of the TTC now are protected. And we want to ensure that the people we place on that board are experienced, skilled, independent, and have no ties in ways that might cloud decision-making at the TTC. As I said, the city manager, the city solicitor, and others are fully in support of the motions I'm tabling, and I hope you'll consider supporting them as well. Thank you very much.
Councillor Layton to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll be supporting Councillor Stints' motion, and I won't be supporting Councillor Thompson's. As other colleagues have pointed out, we must have a commission that, while having a diversity of opinion, follows the direction of the majority of City Council. We must be able to work together. A majority of councillors and a council member as chair of the TTC is vital. We need to ensure that the voices of TTC riders are heard at the TTC, not the voices of unaccountable marketing experts. We have excellent staff working for the TTC that are experts at accounting, corporate governance, customer service, engineering, and so much more. We hire these people to be the experts, and we turn to them for their advice when making our decisions. In fact, we should turn to our experts more often instead of burying the reports, leaving it up to the Toronto Star to dig up or Steve Monroe to make publicly available. A functioning transit system is not simply about doing good business and finding efficiencies. It's about the people of Toronto and ensuring that everyone, regardless of income and ability, can move across our city, that they can work, that they can study, that they can take care of their children. Above all, this cannot be forgotten in this debate. Today we're making a decision about better service for riders, a decision that will ensure the people in Malvern, in West Hill, in Rexdale, and in Thistletown all have access to rapid transit, so they can spend less time packed on buses and more time with their families. Now, I understand some of the arguments being made today to add experts to the Commission, but I think one very important thing is being forgotten. Councillors are already knowledgeable and have access to a great many resources, our constituents. As elected officials, we listen to both the expert advice of staff and the expert advice of the people of Toronto. Often we build a compromise between the two. This is our job. We represent citizens. We bring forward the needs and ideas of tens of thousands of people we each represent. Our principles are fairness, equity, and access. This is what politicians offer. We strive for better service, for more service because transit is good for the public and that enables people to live and to work. In supporting Councillor Stint's motion, I'm supporting the appointment of citizens to the TTC. However, I do not believe these citizens need to be corporate executives. They should be TTC riders, the people that use the system daily. Montreal works this way. They have 9 transit commissioners. 3 of the commissioners are appointed. They are transit users, not necessarily industry experts, including one paratransit user, their equivalent of our Wheel-Trans. In the end, no one is more accountable to the people of Toronto than city councillors. We have a mandate to represent our constituents, and if we fail, there are repercussions through elections. I respect our democracy. I respect those in Ward 19 who have trusted me to represent them, and those in your wards who have trusted you to represent their needs. As councillors, we are equipped with the tools to know where and how to make public transit better for riders. And it is for these reasons I'll be supporting Councillor Stints' motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. I have 2 motions. I hope that they'll be put up there. Could you just hold that until this staff would...
Okay, well, you could start reading.
Oh, I can't start reading them because I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it?
Do we have our motion? There they are. Okay, there you go. Suggesting we amend item number 5 in EX 16.8, the City Manager's Report. A solid knowledge of public transit in Toronto seems to me that it's one of the criteria that should be front and center. I don't see it in the list. Perhaps it's simply assumed, but I certainly don't want to simply assume that. I'd like to make sure that people that are coming in the civic appointments have a solid knowledge of public transit. Now, I see that it says there that somebody should have knowledge or be from a major public transit organization. That could be from somewhere else. And I think we have people in this city that need to be considered, that have tremendous knowledge of public transit. They might not even come from the corporate sector. They may come from the community sector. And they should not be left out of consideration for citizens who would be put on to the Commission. I hope that that would be the approach. With a recruitment firm, I think they need to be able to be guided by somebody's long knowledge of public transit and be able to advance someone like that or people like that to the interview stage. That's the first thing. The second thing, Councillor Carroll has indicated that the Civic Appointments Committee would get a overview, or what I'll call a briefing, on the role of citizen members prior to their consideration of candidates for appointment. I'm amending that to read, "A notice be given to all councillors of this briefing and all members of council be welcome should they wish to attend." And I think it's important that council let the Civic Appointments Committee know of its will, that members are welcome there. I think in the past some members have not been welcome at that committee. And just as Councillor Lindsay Luby is supporting Councillor Carroll in members of council able to be in private sessions of the TTC, I think that members of council should certainly be welcome at that briefing, so we would all hear together exactly what is being told to the Civic Appointments Committee and what is guiding the Civic Appointments Committee in their selection. Very quickly, I will say I am supporting Councillor Stints' motion. There are no other bodies in the City of Toronto that are all public members, as it was pointed out earlier, that are all citizen appointees. There is a blend, different blend, everywhere of citizen appointees and councillors. The expertise of citizens and the good knowledge of council and the accountability back to council is really a tenet that we have here. We're living in a day and age when we've seen what happens when you spin something off completely and you don't have that government oversight. I think that people are wishing they hadn't spun off the helicopter company and that they kept a better blended board to oversee it and some accountability directly back to the ministry. And it's unfortunate that happened, but those are some of the things and pitfalls that you can fall into. I think it's we're here today. A number of people have said we are here today and doing this because of something unfortunate, and some councillors have said they think they did the right thing, and that's up to them. But in looking at this and this discussion, I think one of the tenets that we also have to really say here today is the importance of public servants, professional public servants who have spent their working lives building public service, at the service of the public, working whether it's for the City of Toronto or for the TTC, that are above board public policy people, to simply be ripped off of a position because the council, or not the council, but the mayor and the majority of councillors don't think that they're doing the right job or they're not implementing the mayor's plan. I think that that's
a motion to extend recorded vote.
It's my birthday.
Come back. She is? When is your birthday?
Today.
Oh. Is it your birthday today?
Mine passed last month.
Councillor Layton, please. Councillor Davis.
Councillor Ainsley, please.
Councillor Berardinetti, please.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
The extension to the speaker's time carries 33-1.
Grimes can believe it.
I just want to say how important I think it is that in our approach to this today and in the near future, that our public servants, our leadership of the public service, feel that they have the right, the responsibility to simply tell us their opinion. And if we, and within that, I think that Mr. Webster was saying that while he understands that during the election Mayor Ford had a transportation plan that he put in front of the city that it only had the Shepherd subway and the SRT. There was no Eglinton line. There was no Finch line. All of those things had gone. And there's Mr. Webster, what to do, and there are reports on whether or not we can accomplish the mayor's transportation plan plus the rest of the plan that the previous council had agreed to. And quite frankly, we couldn't. And that's what council basically said. They have serious questions. And when Mr. Webster spoke to us, he told us what he thought. And I feel he was penalized for that.
Okay, Councillor.
And I think I'm on topic. I see Councillor Minnan-Wong giving you the notice that I'm off the topic, Speaker. I believe I am.
Fletcher, you are.
I saw it. You're pretty good, but not good enough to get by me.
You're off the topic.
So I'll step back, but I really believe that that vote to remove the general manager has triggered this here in this council, that it was unfair to remove him in that way, and had that not happened, then perhaps we would not.
Councillor.
From 6:31 to 7 so quickly.
Well, it goes fast. Seconds go very fast. Councillor Pasternak. Councillor Pasternak, you have a question to the previous speaker. Councillor Fletcher, you have a question.
Oh, do I? Oh.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me another second up here.
Our advance notice and agendas for civic appointments distributed to all councillors.
It might simply be a briefing, Councillor, and not an actual called meeting. So I'm not sure. I'm just covering the bases, if you don't mind, that in case it's simply a briefing rather than an actual called standing committee meeting, I guess not a standing committee, but proper meeting, that councillors would still get that, that would be flagged for them that it's happening.
But we're bound by our bylaws to make public or to have public notice of any gathering of a quorum of councillors.
It's true, yes.
So a meeting like this would really not take place in a kind of secret forum or...
I guess that people see agendas that come in, Councillor, and this might take the form perhaps like we sometimes have a briefing from Toronto Hydro or someone who's coming in. The city manager may simply give a briefing and then invite the committee. Sometimes the lobbyist registrar has done that. It hasn't. So I'm just making sure that no one gets left out. And I understand that, I do understand that you might like me to take it out. I could, but we also had a circumstance where a councillor was removed, and that is a serious matter.
I think we're way off topic here, way, okay? Enough. To ask questions, you have to ask questions to clarify the motions, not to get into...
Madam Speaker, with all due respect, I can't even hear what's going on in the chamber because of the din. But,
I know.
Secondly, I mean, is there concern that non-members of the committee, councillors, are not welcome or not allowed to observe the deliberations of civic appointments?
I think that might be the case.
Well, I can assure you that based on our rules of order, that all sitting members of council, including the mayor and those approved for observer status by a majority of the committee members, can attend.
Oh, so I think that might be where this motion would be helpful. That it wouldn't be up to the committee to determine who has observer status, but council would essentially, with this motion, Councillor Pasternak, give observer status to every single councillor who wanted to attend.
I can assure you, sitting councillors do not need a classification of observer status. They are more than welcome to watch our deliberations. We have some chilled water, some high-end tap water that we can share.
Okay, Councillor Pasternak, your time's up.
Well, there has been councillors...
Councillor Fletcher, we're off topic. We are off topic. Councillor Milchin to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll try and be brief. I will not be supporting Councillor Thompson's motion. I think there was fair bit of consensus around this chamber, frankly in the city, I think, that a balanced board is the way that the TTC in the future should be structured. And I don't think we should tie ourselves into knots about whether it's 6 and 5 or 4 and 5 or 7 and 4. I think that's rather immaterial. But it should be a balanced board. There do need to be councillors on there to ensure that there's accountability, to ensure that there's a link to the body that oversees our second biggest expenditure on our budget and provides one of the most crucial services to our residents. But we also need to bring in a broader range of skills, which we cannot do with merely councillors. And this was part of the Mayor's platform, and I support it wholeheartedly. And I think on going forward, whoever sits on the commission tomorrow, we need to work, both those commissioners and council, on restoring trust between our colleagues, restoring trust with our staff, and most importantly, restoring trust with our residents and our TTC riders. This has not been anybody's finest hour. But truth be told, I hate it when I do this, but I guess I'm getting old. I increasingly do it. Let's think back in history. How many of the previous chief general managers of the TTC left through a normal retirement? Let's think about all the political shenanigans that occurred on the TTC over the last 15, 20 years. Coups, power plays, various other things. This is not unique. We will work our way through it. What is unique is at this particular time, we have the benefit that we know there will be significant transit expansion in this city. And we have to get our act together to deliver it in the best way possible. And we might disagree on what it is, and I certainly, no secret, I do believe we should complete the Shepherd Subway, but we need a plan to do it. So we have to start rebuilding that trust amongst each other and work together. And I trust that after today, we can start concentrating on that.
Councillor Vaughan.
I'll be supporting Councillor Stints' motions. I've been a long-time advocate of blended bodies, taking carriage of issues that are most easily defined as things like the Library Board and like the Police Service Board. And I think that transit is one of those issues that will benefit from a blended board. I don't, however, support putting elected and accountable members of the public, your neighbors and mine, in a minority position on that board. I think that removes a layer of accountability, which I think is critical to the way in which organizations like this function. That's why I was so strongly in support of the motion that I presented to Council last spring around 7 and 4 as being the ideal model. When we deviate from that, there should be reasons. And I haven't seen reasons put in front of us today that would lend me confidence to support an alternative configuration. What's really important in this change that's being presented to us is actually not the 7 that come on to this body from Council. And I'll get to that in a minute. It's actually the next step, which is the 4 that come on to this Council. The 4 that we appoint, I mean, if we're looking for someone with transit experience who understands the city system and is birthed internationally with experience from around the globe and is someone with a strong track record and high ethics and accountability, the person we'd be appointing is Gary Webster. That's the person. That's the citizen we'd actually appoint to this body. Unfortunately, he doesn't live in Toronto. But I think it speaks to really, these are 4 very rare positions if what we're looking for is transit experience in this city. If, however, what we're looking to do is to look beyond the 45 of us here and broaden the number of perspectives and the voices and the ideas and the experiences of using transit in Toronto, we have an opportunity to talk to people with disabilities. We have an opportunity to talk to people from parts of the city where perhaps a councillor won't be appointed from, to make sure that there's representation from those communities. Small businesses, as an example. There are lots of other experiences that are critical to the success and future of transit, which we can incorporate with a broader-based decision-making body that if it remains accountable to the public, will be a better decision-making body because they have better inputs being delivered to it. But the other reason I'm supporting the motions that have been put in front of us is because it's good city-building policy. The way in which we use transit to leverage opportunities in the city goes way beyond just simply deciding where we put a transit line and where we don't put a transit line. When you look at issues like tourism, we know that the tourism industry relies heavily on public transit. And if we don't have a transit system that understands that and intersects with our tourism and economic development strategies, we don't have a transit system that's going to serve this city. We know that public works and transit critically interface on situations like where the tracks go, or where the surface routes go, where the roads go, and where our pipes and conduits underground are, that if we don't get that piece right, we end up with huge problems. Witness what happened when we buried Hydro on St. Clair. Everyone blames transit for that dynamic. Hydro deserves a share of the responsibility too. And we never talk about that. We always like to blame transit. But it was the lack of ability to get Hydro and transit working on the same page at the same time with the same goals that actually caused a number of those budget overruns. Think about transit and employment. If you uncouple employment strategies from public transit investments, it will not work. It will not work. And so we need the people who are guiding our Economic Development Committee, almost entirely made up of councillors, to be able to interface and overlap with the folks doing transit investments so that intelligence is shared across both forums simultaneously so that we're coordinated across the city body. And then finally, planning. Planning. This entire debate is really about planning, not about transit. We've focused it in on transit because it's a real interesting little political dynamic that allows us to promise something to some people and hopefully deliver. But if we don't integrate that with good city planning, we're not delivering anything to anybody but a white elephant and operational challenges and capital problems down the road, the likes of which no amount of city plans will ever fix. And so if we don't get those two bodies working in concert with one another, and it's one of the reasons I think the chair of planning almost always sits on transit, is because we need to make sure those two bodies are working simultaneously on the same page with the same agenda. And when we lose sight of that, we end up with bad planning and bad transit. And I think we've got examples of that all over this city. So we need to make sure that our transit body and our council decision-making bodies...
Councillor Vaughn, do you need an extension?
Yes, sorry, I looked up at that clock. I apologize. Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
I thought it was at 2 minutes now. Wow. Yeah.
Councillor Kelly, please.
This is the vote for the extension.
Councillor McConnell, please. Councillor Layton. Councillor McConnell, please.
Nothing. Think of it as a clerk.
Sorry.
See, I'm there for you.
The motion to extend the speaker's time carries 29-2.
Thank you.
So we need a blended board and we need a city building board. And those boards are configured in the motions that Councillor Stintz has presented to us. But finally, I want to talk about Gary Webster. No one's mentioned his name very often today. We had a very nice acknowledgement of Gary Wright's accomplishments as chief planner. Gary Webster does not get that from this council because of what happened a couple of weeks ago, and that's wrong. That's wrong. Gary Webster was a dedicated civil servant who served this city well and served transit in this city well. And the way in which he was exited from this corporation and from this council's decision-making process is wrong. It's just wrong. And I don't care how you spin it and how you package it and how you describe it. What we're doing today is an acknowledgement that what happened a few weeks ago should not happen to civil servants who give us their best advice. That is no way to respond to a council decision that doesn't go your way. If you don't like what council did, bring it to the floor of council. Do not take it out on the civil service. It's incorrect. It's unprofessional, and this council will be served better by the decision it makes in the next few minutes by standing up for professional advice and a professional relationship with its civil service and a civil relationship with its civil service, and not by the politics of vendetta. It's absolutely critical for us. I also want to say that it's not the civil servant's job to fulfill anybody's mandate. They're there to help us fulfill our mandate, but they're not there to fulfill our mandate. That's our job, and it's our job to convince our colleagues to get that done. And when we veer from that course, it's a problem. And then finally, on the issue of Gary Webster, I'd like to thank him. Thank him for his service and his honesty and for his dignity when quite clearly we could have done better.
Thank you, Councillor Vaughan. Councillor Perruzza.
Thank you. I have a motion which I'd like to move. It's basically a friendly amendment to Councillor Stintz's motion, and it's there on the screen and people can read it. I'm going to be supporting Councillor Stintz's motion, not because I believe that we should be adding citizen members to the Toronto Transit Commission and somehow that is going to make it better. I'm going to be supporting her motion because I would like to see the political farce that has sort of, materialized and gone on here come to an end. Because it needs to. It absolutely needs to. We have been just simply, since this disarray, this chaos started, simply been burning money. You know how people around here say, well, there's only one taxpayer? Well, you have been taking that taxpayer to the cleaners. Day one on the job, current administration cancels Transit City. Putting us potentially on the hook, basically burning tens of millions of dollars, maybe $100 million bucks, when it all comes in and when it all is said and done. Embarking on a plan where they're going to, basically, cancel some lines, and where all this due diligence and all this work had been done around Transit City, supported by everyone with any kind of transit knowledge or expertise. I hear people talk about, listen to the experts. Well, the Ministry of Transportation provincially, Metrolinx, the TTC, and everyone else who ever dared to comment. Listen to the experts, they said. That's what this council did. Is listen to the experts. And it approved this grand plan that the province basically wanted, this $18.4 billion program. Then they went on the job. We declared the war on the car over. What that meant, I don't know. Nice catchphrase. Absolutely beautiful catchphrase. War on the car is dead. What did that really mean? It means you burn tens of millions of dollars. Just simply poof, in the air. That's what that meant. Gone. Match. Some gas. I don't know what what does the TTC use? Whatever type of fuel they use. On the money, gone. Then, what's the next stage to the farce? Well, you need to rationalize. So you know what you do? You bury an LRT line and call it a subway. Okay. So you know what? Let's bury the LRT from Laird Drive to Scarborough City Centre, but call it a subway. Oh, we're good now. Right? Everybody's happy because now we're building a subway under the Don and under the Don Valley and in open fields where no one lives and where the road is so wide. Oh man, oh man, oh man. It's like we've never built an above-ground subway. Yonge Street doesn't go above ground. Blue Line doesn't go above ground. The Spadina Line does not go above ground. Oh my Lord, no. But the war on the car. You know what that meant? That's a catchphrase for burning money. Every single month you are out there with that rhetoric, you are burning money. $1 million, $2 million a month. Just burning it. I wish we had come to this decision a month ago. We would have saved a few more bucks. And not ended a career, a real serious career, in a political drama, political farce that absolutely makes no sense. Then, it gets better than all that. What's the next chapter in the farce? There's a meeting held on Finch Avenue where a local councillor says, you know what, I got $1 billion finally for some transit on Finch running through some really impoverished neighborhoods. Transit which they've been waiting for. You know what, I'm happy to wait another 50 years. Give away the $1 billion. Bury it again somewhere on, I don't know, whatever street. Maybe bury an LRT all over again, call it a subway. But I'm happy with that because my neighborhood should be happy with that. Guess some people haven't heard the point of privilege. A bird in a hand is better than a bush.
Councillor Prutza, we're at the 5-minute mark. Our point of privilege has been raised. Councillor Mammoliti on a point. Councillor Mammoliti on a. Councillor Mammoliti on a point of privilege.
I will move that we extend his time to speak by another 5 minutes so we can hear the rest of his mumbo jumbo that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, you know, you were doing fine until the last clause there. Do I understand a 2-minute extension has been requested? There will be a recorded vote.
I challenge the chair.
Yeah.
Councillor Kelly, please.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
Councillor Wong Tam and Councillor Bailao, please. Councillor Layton, Councillor Pasternak. Councillor Bailao, how did you vote, please? There.
The motion to extend the speaker's time carries 31-4.
Councillor Prutza.
So thank you, Speaker. I believe that this political farce has to come to an end, and I hope it does come to an end. I know that some people here believe that they can build subways with nothing. They can build subways without federal monies, without provincial monies, without development charges, without parking levies, without any of those things that you would need to do to build subways. Somehow you can build them with magic beans. Well, you know what? They've had the opportunity to show us how to do it. And they haven't been able to do it. So that part of it has to come to an end. We've also many of us have been here before. I remember a time when the TTC Commission had citizen members on it. So-called experts. They were fired. You took it back. You know why you took it back? Because they were pillaging the place. They were buying airlines and losing money. You all remember that. Citizen members on the commission, you fired them. Because they were buying airlines and losing millions of dollars for the TTC. That's what they were doing, and that's why you fired them.
Is that why you're firing us?
And that's why you brought it back and you appointed politicians to the commission. So we've been here before. I'm going to support Councillor Stints' motion because just simply I believe that we need to move on. We need to bring back seriousness to this whole issue. We have to stop just simply burning away, pilfering away, taxpayers' money and move forward with a plan that makes sense and a plan that is doable. And if Councillor Mammoliti or anybody else knows how to build subways, and they got the magic stats and the magic beans, please show them up. You've had lots of opportunity, all right? Thanks.
And thank you, Councillor Perruzza. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, you know, it's been a long few weeks, actually, and I'm just going to ask Council to really think about this next step in a very serious manner. It seems to me that we've spent about a year in fast overdrive, and where we've come to makes me feel like I've fallen down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, except I didn't get the pill, and I'm not sure if I'm big or small. But I would say that if you think about it, that is how it kind of feels, you know, the Queen of Hearts that just wants to cut off your head, or the caterpillar with the hookah pipe that wants to know, who are you, right? Like, do you feel like you're in this movie here? And I want to, or the Mad Hatter that's busy with the White Rabbit who's always late. And I'm seeing and I'm thinking that kind of we're all sort of in that movie, and I want us to get out of that movie. I really think that this council has a lot more to offer than that. I think that last meeting when the Ombudsman came forward, she talked to us about the protection, the legislative protection that was necessary for our civil servants. And we kind of gave her a bit of a short shrift on that, except that only 4 short weeks later, we're looking at a person whose head was cut off and who is looking at the end of his career not the way he wished. Yes, he'll get paid out. In fact, he'll get paid out a lot more than he would have if he had naturally retired. So we actually lose and lose and lose. But how about his kids? How does his kids feel about what we did to his dad? How does his neighbors feel? How do the people who go to his church feel? How do the people who go summering vacations with him feel about this particular council? So I am suggesting very strongly that it is time for this council to come together, to be solid and have a solid direction. I believe that Councillor Stintz has given us that direction. Is it absolutely perfect? No, it isn't. There are no perfections. This is democracy, and democracy has a very strange road. A year ago, did you think we would be here? I don't think any of us thought that we would be here. But we have an opportunity here today, not only in the legacy of Gary Webster and to the credit of his work, to move a great transportation system forward. When I go into my ward, the first and one question that people have, their number one priority is our TTC. It is our TTC. And we've spent an awful lot of time today talking about the we's and the they's and the wars and yet what we haven't been talking about is really what the needs of our people are, because the needs of our people are different. We haven't talked at all about Queen's Quay. We haven't talked about the concern that developers have who are putting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into Queen's Quay and can't get their condominium owners or buyers or George Brown College or anybody else to the places in which they need to be. I don't need a subway there. I think you all think that people in the downtown, we just like subways. I take the TTC regularly. I rarely get on the subway because I'm mostly going east-west, and that's the system of streetcars. But we do need a system that connects, and that connects in the very best way and the most efficient way. But somehow in the middle of all of this,
we got into a situation where by calling names and using things as ruses for others, that we started to get into this name game and this blame game. And I would ask Council today that we represent the people of Toronto. It is time for us to take control of this, to move it forward, and to give them the best transportation system that this Council will do, and give a legacy to the Council after this and the one after that. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor McConnell.